Welcome to the channel. I'm Stacy, and my goal here is to help you to play better and sound better in your worship services. I recently posted a video with the mini HX Stomp setup using just an HX Stomp, a Pedalnetics Haloxy Duo switch, a volume pedal, and a simple DI box. I was able to get all the tones I needed for several worship services just with that setup. Today I'll be going over my full pedal board with my overdrive section, the HX Stomp, my wet effects, and how I'm controlling those with a MIDI controller. The actual board is one I made with my dad in 2016, and he passed away a few years ago, so I keep it active in his honor. It's 24 inches wide by 14 inches deep, and the Tolex is coming up a little bit, but other than that, it's in good shape. My power supply is the True Tone CS12, and it's enough to cover everything on the board, the HX Stomp, the wet effects, the MIDI controller, overdrives, everything's covered, and I think I even have a couple of ports left over. My patch cables are DIY, and I get my connectors and cable from Creation Music, and they all work great, and they're small, and so everything fits nice and tight. On the side of the board, I'm using a Nutrix locking input jack, and I did that just so that I don't wear out the input jack on a pedal and then have to deal with the repair on that. If this jack goes bad, it's just easy to replace. And from there, I'm going into the compressor, which is a Boss CS3. From there into the Soul Food, which is the Electro Harmonics take on a Klon. There into a Signadrive, which is a CMAT Mods take on a Tube Screamer. And from there into the Euphoria, which is the Wampler take on a Dumble amp. So on the compressor, I just have a light bit of compression, volume set just below or right at unity gain. And then I'll run the Soul Food with the drive at noon, and then I'll set the other settings depending on the guitar I'm playing, just to either be at unity or to push a little bit above. Signadrive I tend to run with just a light bit of gain and then the level to adjust for unity or above, depending on which one I'm using for my lead boost. And then the Wampler Euphoria, I tend to run the EQs unengaged, and then the gain at 9 o'clock, which it looks like it starts right around 7, so it's barely on, and then volume set right around unity or just above unity gain. Also, the amps I'm using today are part of a collection I'm building. These ones are dual AC30s, and here's how it sounds without the pedals engaged. And with the compressor, and with the Euphoria. And you can hear it just adds a little bit of fullness to the tone, maybe a slight bit of gain from that Euphoria, but other than that, it's just kind of thickening the sound a little bit and just giving it a little bit more body. Here's a couple of sound samples of how I use my overdrives. Out of the Euphoria, I'm going into the Dunlop Mini Volume. I'm using the tuner out to a TC Electronics Polytune Mini, which I Plastidip black. And then the output's going to the left mono input on the HX Stomp. And then I have a noise gate set on at minus 65 decibels at 120 millisecond decay, and that just keeps it nice and smooth. And then the way I have this set up, I have 2 amps, each with their own cab. I have the loop for the wet effects, and then I have a simple EQ bumping that holy mid-range at the end. And that gives me 2 extra blocks that I can use for modulations or pitch effects or extra reverbs or delays. So I'm going to show you a couple of samples of how I use that. I'm going to go over the first one with adding a chorus, and then the second one, how I used a second delay to get the rhythmic repeat that I needed for that song. Next we have the delay and reverb, which is the Jet Eternity and the Jet Revelation. I call them the Jet Duo since there's two, and they sound great together. Today I'm using the tape delay on the Eternity and the modulated reverb on the Revelation. And here's a sample with a lot of reverb and delay and also a lot of overdrive. I'm controlling the delay and reverb and the HX Stomp with the Morningstar MC6 Pro. And I use a similar system to the snapshot system on the Stomp, where switches A, B, and C are calling up 3 different presets on the Eternity and the Revelation, as well as the snapshot. So if I want chorus on snapshot 2, I will assign that to a foot switch. I'll go to snapshot 2, save it, and then go to snapshot 1, make sure it's off, snapshot 3, and make sure it's off. And then when I pull up snapshot 2, it's going to come on. And then I got to make sure when I go to my next song that I deactivate that so it doesn't do something I don't want. And the way I set up the delay and reverb is per song. And on this song, the delay and the reverb are both a little bit heavier on snapshot 1, and it's like this. Snapshot 2 is a little bit lighter. And snapshot 3 is set up for swells. There are some guys out there that do some really cool things with their Morningstar MC6 Pros, and I hope to implement some little bit more versatility with it, but this really does suit everything that I'm doing on Sunday mornings, and it works great. Next on the board is the GI Steve, which is a line isolator. It's stereo in, stereo out, and also stereo out parallel if I was to run to amps. I can sum those to mono. I also have a ground lift, and one thing I love about it is the headphone jack, so I can plug my headphones in there and I can hear everything that I've got going on. I don't have to plug into a computer, just super convenient. And then the last thing here is the pouch. And in this thing, I keep my slide, clip-on tuner for backup, and my capo. I also keep a bag of extra picks, 1.0 Dunlop Tortex. And then under this is the small Altoids 10 with even more picks. I like to try different things and I'll just keep them in there so they're handy. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, subscribe and hit that like button for good measure. Let me know too if you have any questions about any of the gear I'm using here today and how I'm using it. I'd be happy to help. There's a handful of downloads free for you in the description box below. I hope you have a great week and I'll see you in the next one.